Hello, welcome. I'm Catherine Veneman, Curator of Education at the Blaffer Art Museum. Thank you for joining us virtually for Summer Arts 2021. We are pleased to present a series of four family-friendly art-making demonstrations, which are partly inspired by the Blaffer's exhibitions and led by artist and educator and docent Rona Lesser. Today's lesson, called Creating Memories, is partly inspired by the exhibition Jagdeep Raina Bonds. You can find out more information on our website as well as lesson plans. So have fun.
Welcome back to the Blaffer Summer Arts Workshops online. And if you've been with us before, and if you haven't, we're glad to have you today. Today, we're doing a lesson inspired by Jagdeep Raina's exhibit at the Blaffer, and I hope you will go see it in person. So we're going to be working with value today. Jagdeep Raina did many pieces in black and white. And when we talk about black and white and shade and light, we're talking also about value, how dark something appears. Color has value also, but it's a lot harder to see unless you hold up a value scale next to it, and then you can tell which colors are actually appearing to be darker. So when we take art lessons, often the teacher will tell you before you do your painting to do a value drawing so you know where you want the darks and lights. And we might go to as high a scale of values as 10, but that's really hard. So we're going to work today with 5 values, going from the very lightest of the paper to as dark as you can get, and then trying to get 3 in-betweens that work. And on this example here, I've done it in different media. I did it in black temper paint, which was a little hard because once I got black paint and I tried to add water, I had to add a lot of water to get really, really light and very, very little paint. And it's the same thing then with watercolor, which is what I'm going to paint in today. And that you need almost no paint and lots of water to get light. And then in case you don't have those materials at home, you could use a black marker, just a Crayola marker, or you can use crayon or pencil. So I've done it in crayon and pencil here. And with crayon, you're going to be pushing very, very hard to get your darks and going back and forth over and over it. The white of the paper stays, so you've got 2. And then you just have to kind of start trying to get maybe really almost not touch the paper with the crayon or the pencil for here. You can always go back and make it a little darker. So you might want to start here and go this way because it's hard to lighten something, but it's easy to get darker and make it darker. So start here and then move to here and move to here and then get as dark as you can. All right, so I'm going to do that quickly with some watercolor. Just a hint, if you're working with kids, water works a lot better in a flat container like an old Tupperware because it doesn't chip. Okay, I'm going to use my watercolor tray, which has the black in it. When I'm working with kids a lot, I pull the blacks out, but for today we need the black. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to start leaving 1 white, and then I can either go and try to get the blackest, or I can just, with almost no paint at all, put in a little teeny bit. This is almost all water. I don't know if you can see that it's almost all water in the second one there. Okay, and then I'm going to get a little bit darker. Okay, so that one's a little darker. and then I can get darker. One nice thing is if it doesn't get where you want it, you can go back over it. And then the very last one, I'm going to go almost full strength, as dark as I can. And I'm going to let it dry. And then if it's not quite what I want, I can go back over those again. And really quickly, just so I can show you with the crayon. So I'm going to go here. I'm going to start with the dark one, just so you can see it. And I broke my crayon doing it. I had to push so hard. Maybe I won't do quite as big a box. So I got that one really dark. I have the white up on the top. And depending which way I want to go, from light to dark, which is probably a little better since then I can add more. I'm barely touching the crayon to the paper, and it's very close to the watercolor value now. And a little bit darker. Oops, almost got too dark there. And darker. It's still letting some of the white of the paper through. Go back and adjust it if you need to. And you can do the same thing with pencil. So that's how we do a value. I would start with an old photo of a building. This is the Heights Theater in Houston many, many years ago. And I chose this photo because it had simple shapes that I could draw. It has lots of rectangles and some curvy lines and oblongs, and that would keep it as simplified as possible to paint. And it has some nice darks and some in-betweens values, which you can kind of tell from holding up the value scale that we made. And I can use the value scale if I need to see how dark and light I want to make things when I'm painting. I could also have used an old photo, which is what the samples you'll see online. This is my husband and his parents when he was a little boy. And so it was a black and white photo. And so everything was in value originally and simple shapes that I could do. And so the completed piece for me looks similar, but not, I'm not trying to do a portrait that looks exact. I just want to get the feeling of it. So I'm going to just demonstrate now, drawing a little bit more of the building one. If you have a photo, there's a trick you can do. If your paper's thin enough where you put it on the window and you put the picture on top of it, the paper on top of it, and you can sketch off some of the outlines. It's like using a light table. But I'm not going to worry about that because I don't care if it's exactly like that. So I put in a few of the shapes. I'm going to add a couple more and just darken the lines so you can see them better of the building. I need to turn it my way a little bit so I can see. So there's a window over here I'm going to draw, and another window over here with two curvy things next to it. It's a very Spanish looking building. Oops, broke my point. Here's another pencil. It's good to keep a couple of extra pencils around when you're drawing, just in case you break points. Triangle shape here. On this side. So just break it into the simplest shapes you can find. And I've got the sign here for the theater, which is a big rectangle with almost a half circle on top, or a half, actually more of a half oval. And then underneath the doors are a big rectangle and a smaller rectangle for another door over here. And that's probably enough. There's a pole up here to get us started. So it kind of looks like this. There's some signs in the window on the door. It kind of looks like this. And then I'm going to look at my photo and start with either leaving the lightest thing light and then going to the next value, or deciding I was going to work from dark to light. So, or in between. So I think I'm going to put in some really dark shapes just so I know where they are. Sometimes if you're being creative with this, you want to keep your dark shapes where you know. I missed a window shape here, so I'm going to just put it in. I didn't draw it, but it's real dark. And then the next darkest thing is kind of the doorway area. So I've kind of established my really, really dark shapes, which are going to be in contrast then to some of the lighter things. I'm using water media because that was the media that Jagdeep used a lot in his work, though his work does say it's a mixed media. Okay, so then the windows up here are slightly lighter. So I'm going to get them a little bit lighter if I can. Watercolor sometimes fades a little lighter than you think it will too. And the sign is lighter. I'm going to try to make that a little lighter. I could go back and write letters on it later with a white pencil. But right now I'm just doing some of the values. And then the building itself, little tiles up here are in between. They vary, but I'm just going to make them one shape. The pole is probably a little bit lighter. Oh, and I forgot to do the movie sign itself, which is just teeny bit lighter than this part. And I'm going to go back over the darkest part. So if I look at my value scale, I've kind of got only 3 right in now: dark and a medium and a light and the white. So I want to make the building something in between. Maybe that number 2 there, that really light. So lots of water. That's almost not enough water to get it light enough. Oops. It's also running a little bit because I'm wet into wet. See if I can find the towel, paper towel in my lap again, where it's getting too dark, and just lighten it. There's like a shadow on this building from the awning above it. It's a little bit darker. But it'll help, it'll start making us sculpting the building into some shapes that you can actually see. Okay, just for contrast, because I need, for the art reason, I'm going to make a couple of things darker. So I need a little bit more contrast. So you kind of get an idea. I'm looking for different shades until it starts looking a little more realistic. And the more detail you can do, the more realistic your picture will come out. You could go back if you wanted more detail and use a pencil or a crayon and put some details in when it's dry. But basically, you're going to end up with a picture that is all black and white. And you'll learn something about using value. So I hope you've enjoyed the lesson and that you'll come to the museum and look at the art in person and keep up with us online. Thank you for joining us today.